Hey everyone, and welcome to the Weekly Marketer Podcast. Every single week, we interview deep dive experts in one of the many fields of marketing to drop huge knowledge bombs from the best of the best and teach you how to take your marketing skills to the next level. This is episode 006, and I'm sitting here with Connor Dube, who is an expert in LinkedIn social selling and B2B content marketing. He's worked with huge brands like CenturyLink, Time Warner, OfficeMax, Level 3, and many, many others to drive high-value B2B sales deals and create deep relationships that end up in 6 or 7-figure outcomes. Connor, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here.
Hey, brother. I'm honored to be here. I'm humbled to get to share some awesome information with your audience today. Number
Absolutely.
6. This is number 6, huh?
This is number 6. This is the 6th episode, yeah.
It only gets easier and easier from here, my friend. We're about to hit 50 on our podcast.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. I'm excited for you. How long have you been doing that?
We've been doing the Mile High Mentors podcast for about a year and a couple months now.
Okay, that's great. So you've been releasing content at a pretty good clip then, like once every week, every other week?
Yeah, consistency was the toughest thing in the beginning, but once you start getting it down and you get some rhythm and motion, like it doesn't exactly tie in with my main business, but I'm from Colorado and I really wanted to create like a super niche podcast that was focused with, the incredible mentor and leadership community we have here. So that is why I, created that. So it's really fun. It's just a passion project more than anything.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic. So Connor, you're the guy or one of the guys or one of the people, I should say, when it comes to LinkedIn social selling and B2B content. What does that kind of look like? How is that kind of different from, other social marketing and other kind of content marketing? What sort of sets that apart, and how'd you get into that?
I would absolutely consider myself the number one millennial authority when it comes to B2B social selling and content marketing, for especially like my focus area, Jeremy, is like companies that sell very, very complex and really high value deals, which is a totally different animal than if you're, doing Facebook ads or selling, 30, 50K deals. And so I kind of, mainly through practitionership, like we've been around for 18 years. And I'm sorry, remind me your question one more time, because I started going off on a tangent there.
Yeah, so I was just talking about how we, basically I was asking, kind of what the difference is between that and B2B and like, content marketing for like B2C applications or whatever, and how LinkedIn social selling compares to other social media marketing, and then also kind of how one would get into that sort of game. What is your journey to getting to being the number one millennial B2B kind of content marketing expert and social selling expert? How does that happen?
Yeah, let me start with my background a little bit, give some people some context, because I think that's pretty important. Then I'll dive into really what is B2B social selling? Like, how is this different from other marketing strategies? You have to forgive me. My birthday was this weekend. I just came off from I usually work 7 days a week, and I actually took the freaking weekend off. And my brain is like, what's going on, dude? What's going on? Anyways,
that's cool.
I was, I was born and raised here in Colorado, and I've always had a major passion for sales and for marketing, but I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 7. September 11th, 2001. That date might sound familiar because 2 planes crashed into the Twin Towers, and I stole rocks from my neighbor's yard and I painted them and I sold them to people to raise funds for the rebuild efforts. And so that was my launch in entrepreneurship, like super early on. My dad was franchising Remax offices in the early days. He started this company that we're in partnership now in 18 years ago, which is how I kind of found myself in this particular niche, like this really niche area. And mom's been in real estate. So I've always been kind of like very much seen the salesy side of people, right? Like when you're surrounded by real estate people, I don't know if you've ever been networking and you're hanging out with real estate people.
I've done a little bit. I've done some work in the real estate space. I've done some gen for real estate.
Yeah, but when you're just raised to be a total social animal when you're around a bunch of real estate people. And, I started multiple businesses growing up. I created my first LinkedIn profile when I was 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Who the hell's doing that? Most kids are hanging out on MySpace. I was hanging out and kind of poking around LinkedIn.
I don't think these days they're hanging out on MySpace, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Back in those days. But I don't know, man. If you're on MySpace, go connect with me, see if you're still using it.
I think they're doing circles on MySpace now or something like that. I actually logged in the other day just to check it out. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's
weird.
hilarious.
It's like a music platform now. It's really, but anyway, so yeah,
you got people are still using it?
Yeah, some people are, I guess.
It's hilarious. So I always knew I wanted to do something sales and marketing related. It's just always a passion. I ended up going to school down here in Denver for my marketing degree, but I had a pretty unique experience, Jeremy, compared to a lot of others, whereas I was actually a practitioner throughout that period of time while I was attending college, meaning I cut my teeth in sales, doing door-to-door sales for 2.5 years, which most people don't last more than 2.5 weeks doing door-to-door sales. So I like to say I've been in every ass crack and crevice of Denver, Colorado, and Colorado in general. I've seen some scary shit, if that's fair to say. I've seen some scary things. And I went on to manage another department of theirs where I was training and managing 25 sales and marketing people. I was 22 years old at the time. I helped take that department from 4.5 to $10.8 million in a year and a half, all the while earning my marketing degree, studying. Most people were partying and all that good stuff in college. I was like reading marketing and sales books. And it was just organic to come into my dad's business where they've been doing B2B content marketing, strictly B2B, for 18 years. And I started to see the shift, right? The shift in where we're going with attention and how the B2B buyer works. Because compared to consumer sales, I know you mentioned a lot of your listeners are startups, right?
Right. Yeah. And they kind of, they run the gamut of, B2C to like services companies to, some B2B sort of thing. So it's diverse in the kind of entrepreneurs that it tends to attract.
Right. And now the difference in like really complex B2B sales is generally there's about 5 or 5+ decision makers, influencers, and champions on any sort of enterprise purchase. When you're selling to consumers, usually you have to get past that one person and maybe their gatekeeper, wife or spouse. In this case, there's multiple gatekeepers, and all those people, Jeremy, are doing research. They're educating themselves much deeper than they used to. They're not picking up the phone for cold calls as much. They're not, responding to cold random emails. They're very relationship-driven sales. Also, because of technology, we have our cell phones. Some of you listening to this podcast may be looking at your cell phone while you're listening to this podcast, scrolling through your news feed right now, which is super interesting. So we're doing much more researching, and we're more distracted than ever before.
Yeah, I was reading a thing that was it was talking about that the number of ads that everybody sees a day went from, in like the 80s or 90s even, which was a couple hundred, up to like that, literally thousands a day. So it's not like a doubling or a tripling. It's like a power rule almost.
It's a fight for attention. It's a major fight for attention. And this is super fascinating. I'm really glad you said that, because when I was back doing door-to-door sales, I started to see this trend, this really interesting trend where I'd go to somebody's doorstep and they'd answer and they'd be pissed I was there. And they're like, God, you guys were here like 10 times last week and you're here the week before. And I talked to your guy at the Home and Garden show. And you also sent me a flyer last week. Oh, and you sent me an email this morning. And by the way, is that your commercial on TV right now? So these people were telling me they had seen us 10 different touch points. And the guy he's like, dude, I hate you, but I'm not going to kick you off my doorstep. Let's set up a meeting. Yes, I know I need windows. Let's do this thing. So I was selling windows just for context. And I was like, wow, whoa, this is interesting. Like, this is a missing component in B2B. Like this is a massive missing component, especially with these really complex sales. So I broke it apart into really kind of two components, Jeremy, where really I think for any business, whether you're a startup or you've been around 100 years, the biggest missing pieces to any sales and marketing strategy, whether it's cold calling, trade shows, conferences, email marketing, pay-per-click, Google AdWords, SEO, is twofold. Being able to reach the right people and being able to consistently stay in front of them. Reach and consistency.
Absolutely. That's goal. Yeah. That's the first thing that you need to be doing correctly, right? Is consistently be reaching people with quality content, quality messages. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that that's a lesson that transcends even just B2B, but B2C as well.
Oh yeah. Everything, various touch points. Like as a young millennial dude, I don't think that cold calling's dead. I don't think email marketing's dead. I'm a proponent of SEO and attending conferences and networking events, but they lack those two major components of reaching the right people and having the consistency. So I started to realize that out of any platform, LinkedIn is that platform that brings you the reach and brings you the consistency, because there's 600 million users now. And compared to Facebook, compared to Instagram, compared to Twitter, compared to YouTube, you're able to actually identify and like highly target those buyers without having to do the ad spend. It's more of a personal relationship and personal brand driven program than compared to growing your business on a platform like LinkedIn. Not to say one's better than the other, they're just different, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And marketing in general, I think that you're hitting on a really important trend, which is marketing in general is moving more towards this personalized one-to-one sort of world, right? Where people want things that, speak specifically to them, specifically the thing that they're trying to solve, specifically what their circumstances are. And so I think that you're hitting on a really, really important topic, and how we as marketers approach that could be the difference between success and failure for the companies that we're working for or clients that we're working for.
Yeah, big time. I mean, it's like any sale is very relationship driven. And so what I love about LinkedIn is really the ability to get more reach and get more consistency and drive it through your personal brand more as a personal relationship, because whether it's 100 years ago or it's 2019, people do business with people, and it's no different. Like it doesn't change just because we're using technology as the delivery medium. So back when I came into our family business, Jeremy, a few years ago now, we started, Mark is my dad, we started building our personal brands on LinkedIn. And the first year we started deploying this, our 18-year-old company grew by 30%. Our plans are to double this year, double our 18-year-old business and exponentially grow from here on out. Turns out these activities that we were involved with were basically involved with a term that was coined as social selling, which is what you and I were, talking about, like, hey, this is a topic we should touch on. Now, make no mistake, like I'm in this world, right? Like I'm super close to this stuff. Social selling is a buzzword, just like content marketing is a BS buzzword, because technically all marketing is content marketing, whether it's a billboard or a rock back in the day and you wrote a love note on it. It's content, and it's content marketing.
Right. My favorite example of that is the prostitutes in ancient Rome would wear sandals that had a follow me this way for a good time. And would leave
that is content marketing.
Would leave stamps in the dust on the roads, right? And yeah, it's true. Like, I mean, I do a lot of different things, but largely, I'm kind of more on the technical side of marketing, right? Where I spend a lot of my time doing analytics, and I do a lot of, like media buying and strategy and things like that. I have my own firm, but that's kind of what our value prop is around. However, part of our value prop is really creating content that sticks out to people. And we work with really talented, copywriters, art directors, people like that to make sure that we have that really awesome content, because really at the end of the day is you're trying to make a connection with people, like you said, right? And I completely agree that all marketing is content marketing. However, there's just other parts to it around delivery and things like that that can make huge differences. But yeah, at the end of the day, you have to have a message that resonates with the people that you're trying to sell to, and that is content. So I completely agree.
There's millions of components that go into it. So this is where this is different and unique compared to traditional, because traditional companies, whether, whatever, any traditional business is made up of your sales department and made up of your marketing department, right?
Yeah. For some reason, those are split apart.
I know. Well, in today's day and age, because of how the buyers changed, because of the shift, social selling is where the marriage between sales and marketing occurs on social media platforms. The difference of this is the delivery tool, the medium of this is a personal brand or personal brands within the company. So if you're a 10-person company, ideally key folks over there are starting to build themselves out into quote unquote brand ambassadors for the company. And they are in turn like the gateway to the company brand. So whether you're a one-person startup, you can start winning and closing deals and getting your pipeline filled organically using the principles of social selling that we've been refining out for years and years. Or if you're a 100-person company or 1,000-person company, like I've talked to Microsoft about this, they own the damn platform. They own LinkedIn, and they still are very convoluted about what this stuff actually means. But instead of running a bunch of ad spend through Microsoft's company page, I can take the VP of business development for the global division of Microsoft and use the 4 principles, like the 4 key components of social selling, and bring additional reach, bring additional consistency, and eventually additional revenues to the business.
Right. Absolutely. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think it's kind of funny. You talk about basically using a personal connection to kind of grow your brand. And it's interesting how for a one-person startup or whatever, right, it's because your company, nobody really knows it that much yet, right? So it's easier to create a connection with, your founder or a team member or what have you at the low end. At the high end, they don't want to be seen as like a giant nameless, faceless corporation. So it's about creating a connection. And it just kind of comes back to this over and over. It's really all about creating a personal connection with people and being the kind of person that they want to do business with.
Well, look at some of the top well-known influencers and brands today. Damon John, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee, Grant Cardone. These guys have already laid the foreground of what it actually means to have a personal brand that works as an expansion mechanism for your core business, right?
Right. Absolutely. VaynerMedia. I send Gary Vee an email every single week telling him that he needs to get on the show before it blows up and he's going to miss the boat and I'll be too big to have him
Nice.
on. But no, I mean,
awesome.
Truly though, the guy puts out an incredible amount of content. I mean, I'm pretty sure he has like a team of 16 people that manage just his brand. But that said, I think it's really interesting that you bring that up because VaynerMedia is a 9-figure company. Like they do over $100 million a year in business, and they do that largely off the back of Gary Vee being Gary Vee. And so I think that that's a really pertinent point to bring up, is about like using a personal brand to scale a company.
Right. Now here's where only if you're interested, I'll give it to you. But here's where
I think I'm a little interested.
here's where the rubber meets the road when it comes to LinkedIn, because that's where I'm an expert. That's where my brand is. That's where my following is. I wouldn't consider myself an expert on Facebook or Instagram. Like I'm a social media expert, but I'm a LinkedIn expert. And I don't try to be everything to everybody, which brings me to one of my first points here is that there's 4 key principles to building your brand and to deploying social selling on LinkedIn. Number one is messaging. And I'll break these apart a little further because they may sound generic at a high level. Messaging, engagement, content, and consistency. Those are the four fundamental pillars. If you look at any influencer on LinkedIn that's actually, I'm not saying they're getting a shit ton of likes on their post, because that doesn't always mean it's actually driving sales results for you, which, by the way, guys, as marketers, this might break your heart a little bit, but if it's ultimately not growing the brand reach or driving sales, it's a fluffy activity.
Yep, that's certainly a perspective. No, I mean, I generally tend to agree, right? I tend to warn people away myself from vanity metrics and things like that. Clicks don't really.
No, they're good things to look at. Like they're things to be in, like to focus on and to keep an eyeball on. But in the long run, if it's not actually advancing the cause, I talk to so many marketers that are like, yeah, we're using Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn. And then I go and really break the numbers down, and they're not driving shit for sales from any of those platforms. So that's probably one of the biggest frustrations for most company leaders is they're using social media, but can't match the actual sales results with what they're doing on social media.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that the thing that I would say is that you're right. Like ultimately, if you want to cut it down to just kind of the base level, you don't want to be spending a lot of time on things that don't achieve your overall goals, right? That aren't actually advancing that, like, KPI that you have when it comes to your marketing program. And that should be something like purchases or leads or what have you. I think that, yeah, I do. The one, I guess, place I would challenge you is that those fluffy metrics can be good signals, but they aren't a goal in and of itself. So I will agree with you.
They're good signals, but if you're using LinkedIn and you're just deploying the content side of the social selling pillars and you're just getting those, it's still not going to drive the result.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I saw a real estate agent doing a one-armed push-up challenge, and it had like 8,000 likes or something like that. And I go, and this sells houses how? So I get what you're saying. I agree. Yeah.
Right. People they're like, I'm going to go viral. It's like, okay, cool. But like, I'd rather have a consistent following of highly engaged people that are like a fraction the amount of size than compared to like just putting, shitty content out that is like something that would go viral on Facebook and does well on LinkedIn, but it's not actually providing value for people, which I think is probably, LinkedIn may have to make this change, but I personally go to LinkedIn because I want to educate myself about different industries, different subject matter experts. I go to Facebook because I'll take a look at cat videos. I go to LinkedIn because I really want to understand deep knowledge that's going to help me grow as a person, grow my business and all that good stuff. So here's just kind of an easy takeaway. Like if you're going to start anything on LinkedIn tomorrow, like if you're just going to try and determine some ways to get this stuff rolling, the biggest important factor really is the messaging on your profile, because most people, like LinkedIn's a 17-year-old platform. I don't know if you knew that, but it is.
Yeah, it's pretty old.
It is as old as MySpace, but it's growing at the same rate. Probably less of a rate, but still growing up and up in terms of social media platforms. So it's doing something right. And by the way, I acknowledge like LinkedIn can go away tomorrow. That's totally a possibility. But the thing about LinkedIn is it started as a recruiting platform. So the vast majority of people who use the platform kind of tend to structure their profiles as like a digital resume for themselves. Most companies, like most company leaders, presidents, like, do you know how many salespeople, presidents, CEOs are on LinkedIn? There's a lot. There's millions.
Almost all of them.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I run a fair amount of LinkedIn ads too, and it's kind of crazy, some of those numbers that you see. I was setting up an ad earlier today that was, targeting lawyers in the United States, and there's 1.1 million of people with a JD, right, in the United States. So it's a lot of a reach that I think a lot of people give it credit for.
And putting lawyer as your title is fine, but The thing is, LinkedIn's unique in that whenever you're engaging with people, whether it's viewing profiles or liking their content or commenting or engaging with specific hashtags that your prospects are posting, every time you're doing those engagements, those prospects are actually seeing the key message on your profile on the sections above the fold. So you can leverage, as a biz dev person, leverage that real estate much more to reflect what you do, how you help people, who do you help specifically, and what's the end result of that.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. I see what you're saying, and I think that one of the things you're hinting at is a lot of people regret that they didn't get in to Facebook pages earlier and leverage building an audience back when organic reach was good. And organic reach is still very good on LinkedIn, and you can still reach a lot of people in your audience over and over, rather than the 0.2% or whatever that organic reach gets you on Facebook pages anymore. Would that be kind of a fair takeaway, like, of what you're saying right now?
Yeah. I mean, on your personal brand, your company page, this is the unique thing about LinkedIn though, unless you're spending money to run paid ads through your company page isn't going to get near the amount of exponential reach as if you're putting the right content into your newsfeed on your personal brand. So it's funny, like I'll post, I guess Instagram's probably my secondary platform, which even I still don't even have that big of a, brand over there, but I'll post something on Instagram and I'll get 200 views on it. I'll be like, woo, that's freaking awesome. And then I'll post something on LinkedIn and I'll get 1,000 views on it. I'll be like, what the hell? Why didn't this do very well? But again, there could have been 10 key prospects that would be a next 6-figure client that saw that. So higher net worth individuals are checking this stuff out, and, just more like the companies, the different influencers within companies are checking that out. But back to your company page, when I see a lot of people structure their profiles that way, if they're doing everything else right and their messaging is off, it's kind of like driving really targeted traffic to a landing page. You said you've done ads before, Jeremy, or you do ad spend. If you're driving traffic to a landing page or a website where the messaging is convoluted, you have literally seconds to capture somebody's attention and they bounce, right?
Right. And it's getting worse.
I know. We're just freaking goldfish brain.
People have less attention even. Yeah, people have even less attention, right? That's absolutely true. That's some interesting takeaways. So leveraging the real estate, having the right content, having a clear, concise message, I guess, can I run you through a thought exercise? Like if I was an enterprise SaaS executive, right? Let's say we're a pretty early stage enterprise SaaS executive or SaaS company. Maybe we have 20 employees or something like that. And I came to you and I said, Connor, I want to do LinkedIn social selling. I want to do B2B content. I really want to use this to drive sales. Kind of walk me through what that process would be like. What is that? How do you kind of set up an executive like that? And what would those first steps be in order to kind of start this process?
Yeah, I mean, all of our clients, even if they're we work with a lot of IT companies, for example, but there's a lot of variations under the IT umbrella. So everything with me starts with a very, very in-depth, meaty consultation so I can really pull what I need from their heads to understand their scenario. But here's what I would say, if we're just kind of doing a thought exercise and at a high level, is that if you're, a lot of people will take what I just said about who do you help, how do you help them, and then they'll go to their profile and say, I help busy executives with my scheduling platform, or I help grow revenues with our sexy SaaS platform, whatever it is. It's super high level, or they try to make it fluffy. So it's it looks creative and people go, oh, that's cute, but they still don't understand what the hell you do. So to take a step back, because of all the noise out there, Jeremy, the first thing I really try to pinpoint with my clients is, okay, you sell SaaS and it probably provides several different benefits, and you probably have, most companies have 5 or 6 different services or products that they sell, right? Usually it's not always one key thing, especially in the B2B realm. That's the case. So instead of talking at a high level, like if you have several different ways you can help people, find the one key thing. Like if you look at my profile, it's focused around IT, social selling, and content marketing. So it's not pretty, but it makes sense. Like it's easy for people to see, oh, this guy does IT content marketing. Okay, cool. And so try to lead with the key value, like really try to niche yourself. So another example of that is I don't take clients on unless they'll focus on a particular niche. So I'll take an IT client that when I'm talking to them, they're like, we sell to anybody and everybody.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of times I've had a meeting where I go, okay, what's the target audience? And they say men and women 0 to 99 years old.
Right, exactly. It's like, come on, really?
You got to be a little bit more targeted than worldwide. Like, you can be a little bit more targeted than that. I believe in you, and I understand wanting to be inclusive, and there's nothing wrong with that, but understanding your niche is very important. I agree.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of free spinning these thoughts here, but we live in such an incredible world where we have access to all the information. There's no gateway to information, right? So if there's a company and you're listening to this and a company is looking to hire you and they have a significant need related to what you do, I guarantee you that they would much rather hire an expert over a generalist. So although like my core messaging, I focus around IT and tech related businesses, people think you limit yourself like that. Like, oh, well, I don't want people to think I can't help them. I actually get more business from other really unique industries because they see I'm such an expert and they see I'm a specialist.
What do you mean by that? That's really interesting, actually. I'd like to dig into that a little bit.
So, for example, like if I'm selling IT, like if I'm using IT as a keyword, it's specific, but there's 100 different industries and sub-industries that fall under that category, right? A lot of people who do marketing, so I'll just take the agency model, for example, like they'll go out and market and say, we're going to help you grow your sales and grow your business. Well, imagine the impact of your message if you were to say, I help SaaS companies grow their sales versus I help companies grow their sales.
Yeah, I would say that even a niche within a niche I've found to be like surprisingly profitable. So like, in my case, right, my focus is I do click to call ads for attorneys, like a subset of marketing for a subset of an audience, and actually not even all attorneys. There's like 5 verticals that we focus on specifically. So yeah, it's a niche inside a niche inside a niche. And you can actually, it's interesting. I definitely, that is a experience that rings very true to me as well.
Right. So like, people think just because it has the word marketing in it that it needs to be creative. It's not always the case, especially when it comes to social selling on LinkedIn. So again, just focusing on LinkedIn here, social selling on LinkedIn. And you guys cherry pick what we're talking about out of this conversation. Not all of it is super relevant to you if you're not selling products and services business to business, but the principles, the components are still applicable no matter what you sell, no matter what industry you're in. So making yourself specific enough that you break through the noise. And then once you have that attention, then you can talk at a higher level through your content and your engagements. And that's how you drive sales opportunities. But even still, like you have access because of the internet, you have access to freaking everybody in the world. So if you niche yourself and make yourself focused, then you're going to be more valuable. You're going to be able to charge more for what you do. In turn, you're going to be able to provide more value for the people that you serve, for your clients, and you're going to grow your business quicker and more sustainably than in the alternative.
No, that's fascinating. That's super interesting. I really like, this has been incredible kind of for, a lot of really valuable takeaways for everybody like that. I would say what is the biggest thing that, you see people doing wrong when it comes to social selling on LinkedIn? Like just the number one thing, if you could snap your fingers and make it disappear off the planet, what would you do? What would you get rid of?
The number one thing they're doing wrong, that the majority of people are doing wrong, is they're trying to automate the process.
Okay, interesting.
They're using some sort of automation on their LinkedIn profile in order to get lead generation. So the number one mistake they're looking at in the social selling realm is they're looking at it as a lead gen function, when really it's a long-term brand development nurturing function. So it should be perceived more like a long-term drip marketing campaign versus a quick response lead generation campaign. That's how you burn through really, really valuable relationships, and could very easily be your next sale, but you didn't take a customized approach to it. So that person just throw you under the rug and just brush you off.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. So let's say, let's just say, for instance, so if I was to pursue a strategy like this, right? And I would say, okay, I want to connect with attorneys that own their own law firms, right? I'm going out, I'm just connecting with them, and then I'm just pushing out like relevant content and letting them then eventually reach out to me, and not going for the fast sale. So once they connect with me, I don't want to just message them and be like, hey, buy my services like right now. The better way is to kind of put out the content and then let them come to you after you've connected.
Are you using Sales Navigator?
No, I'm not. Actually, I'm just doing a hypothetical. I'm not.
So I love, first off, the Sales Navigator tool on LinkedIn. So if you sell a product or service to anybody, whether it's B2B or B2C, and you want to use LinkedIn, I think it's like $74 a month. If you sell $100 product, then it's worth it. It's going to be worth it for you, because Sales Navigator gives you direct one-to-one access to everybody on LinkedIn without restriction. And it also gives you capabilities to target specific accounts. So if I want to go and look at companies that sell HIPAA compliant products or tech services or whatever, I can go look up those companies that want, or if I want to identify a SaaS company that does 5 million to 100 million a year, I can use the tool to identify them. Instead of going out, again, this is what most people do wrong, is they use LinkedIn to go out and send a bunch of connection requests. I would take the approach, this is how we run this thing, is using much more soft engagement methods. So profile viewing is really great. If you have the right team and tools in place, there's ways to kind of do that at scale, which I really like, without like doing a bunch of spammy connection requests or sending a bunch of messages to people unsolicited. Engaging content, like racking up all these soft impressions. So when you're doing this, you can send 100 connection requests out, but none of those people may be ready to talk to you because of timing, because of need, because of money. When you're hitting more impressions at scale that aren't coming across as spammy, you're going to get much more people reaching out to you rather than the other way around, because your message on your profile is so damn clear and it's so targeted towards them, it's almost impossible to resist. Now, here's what you're missing if you're talking about the case. So you connect up with somebody and you're sharing content and you kind of let them navigate through that. That's good. But LinkedIn's messaging platform is really powerful if you use it the right way. Meaning, again, looking at it as much more of a nurturing function rather than a, hey, do you want to meet with me? Hey, would you like to set up a call? Hey, would you like to, I'd love an opportunity to connect with you offline. That shit doesn't work anymore. Like, people tune that out. They've seen
I love it. Yeah.
too much of that.
Oh my God.
If your profile message is right and your content is right, that does the selling for you. You don't have to pitch. The people who reach out to you are going to be your best prospects and your best clients because they have already pre-qualified themselves with all the value instead of just, meeting with you offline because they also just want to make a connection and maybe they can sell you something also in the meantime.
Right, right. No, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that. So, no, that's cool. So I've got a couple of questions from the mailbag.
Fire away.
Question 1. So Derek wants to know, is LinkedIn Sales Navigator worth it? And what is the best way to use it, if so?
As I mentioned, Sales Navigator is worth it if you're actually leveraging it appropriately. You can still get a taste for success and the other amazing capabilities of LinkedIn with just a regular, generic program. But as I mentioned, you're limited by the engagements you can do, by the reach that you can get, by the people you're able to identify and get in front of. So in my opinion, if Sales Navigator is $75 a month, I don't know what it is. It's around there, $65 a month. If you sell a product and service that's anywhere around that and knowing you can reach 500 prospects every day organically, yes, in my opinion, it's worth it. And I don't sell, I don't have no connection with Sales Navigator, so I don't benefit by telling people to purchase it.
Sure. And then the trick with Sales Navigator would be to get the soft impressions to get people to then connect with you and then consume your content and eventually become a customer. Basically, though, incepting them, it seems like. Cool.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Okay. Next question here. Norman wants to know, is LinkedIn more useful in some verticals rather than others?
It depends on the vertical. I mean, are you talking about selling kids clothes or are you talking about selling, do you know what the vertical is?
Didn't say, just B2B. So is it useful for all B2B verticals, or do you see success with particular verticals? I think that's kind of the question.
It depends on how you would consider useful as viable for using the platform. Now, if I were to start anywhere, most people who are going to start a business tomorrow, the first thing they're going to do is start trying to use Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I would be a proponent for anybody to start on LinkedIn because of a lot of the benefits that we had talked about, and then scale out to other platforms once you get that working for you. Now, again, it depends on what you're selling. We've helped companies that sell telecom tower deployments to HIPAA compliant messaging systems to hospitals. We have a client right now that sells a SaaS product to geoscientists and environmental engineers and environmental scientists, and they're freaking crushing it on LinkedIn. And you're like, what the hell? How could you wouldn't think geoscientists are spending their time actually consuming on LinkedIn, but they are. And we were even taken back. So it's a great question. I think it really depends. You'd have to go look at the audience. Now, here's something really important that I want to share. Make no mistake, just because you and your company sells to presidents, for example, again, I talk to so many people that are like, my industry doesn't use social media. I'm like, really? I guarantee you that one of those 7 decision makers most likely does. So that's the beauty of social selling, is just because the person you sell to directly isn't using the platform doesn't mean that you can't grow sales by getting your foot in the door with a influencer. Look at Gary Vee, for example, who you're emailing every week. Gary Vee, if I understand correctly, he sells more to the Fortune 100 and 500 market. He's an ad agency, right?
Right.
So
pretty much, yeah. VaynerMedia. That's the name of his company. So
yeah. So they're an agency. They're an agency model. But if you look at his marketing, he grows influence and awareness with the millennials, the Gen Xers. He did a shoe release I saw. That a shoe release isn't going to impact a CEO of a Fortune 500 company or a chief marketing officer, but it's going to create buzz. It's going to create buzz for that person.
Right. Absolutely. You don't necessarily need to hit the CEO right away. What you could do, though, is basically connect with the 22-year-old, marketing assistant, right? And like get a foot in the door there, and suddenly they're a voice in the ear of like the CMO of the company, right? Or what have you. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that direct that you're just hitting that person over and over. No, that's a great piece of advice. So next question here, AJ wants to know, what is the most important part of creating a great LinkedIn profile?
The number one most important part is the real estate where your name is. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go look at my LinkedIn profile, Connor, Connor Dube, Dube.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
So that would be the most important place
so
to start.
So it says your name, comma, IT social.
Kind of like think of your website. The everything above the fold, the header of your website is the most important. That's where people are going to land first, unless they're coming in through a blog post. But the next thing they're going to do after they read that blog is go look at your homepage. Exactly.
Yeah, and they want to know within seconds who you are, what you're about, and if it's relevant to them. And so, yeah, absolutely. That's a universal marketing lesson. So basically the area next to your name is the most important part. That's great. Do you use LinkedIn? So Rick wants to know, do you use LinkedIn groups at all in order to reach people? And how does that work?
Absolutely. LinkedIn groups have changed because of where LinkedIn's placed them. So it depends. Like I do absolutely go in and engage, but I mostly use them to share content into so that I'm just getting more backlink reach and everything like that. I mean, the whole platform works like an SEO. It's like SEO optimizing your website. The same thing works on your profile. So if, people could search particular keywords into Google and actually find your profile because of the engagement, the reach, and all that good stuff there.
Oh, interesting. So you're saying it's actually in some cases easier to rank your LinkedIn profile than it would be to rank your website on specific words.
Yes, but if I had, in terms of group, if I had to pick to do one for the next 12 to 24 months, if I had the option to build a LinkedIn group versus building a Facebook group, I would absolutely build a Facebook group.
Okay, interesting. Okay. Now that's if you're building a group but you do engage in LinkedIn groups quite a bit.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because there's groups out there like IT professionals. Well, that's where my market's hanging out. Like those are the people I want to engage with, and they're there. Like I can literally go to the search bar, search a group. Like if I want to search a homeowners group or whatever, or a legal question group, I can definitely go search that stuff up and go engage over there.
Right. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So final question here. Rafi wants to know, what LinkedIn plan is best for a SaaS salesperson focused on getting leads?
If you're going to do that, go straight for Sales Navigator. Just don't do any other upgrade. Sales Navigator is going to be the one that you want, especially if you're selling SaaS. Like I would say it's going to be more than a couple $1,000, product sale. So I would absolutely use Sales Navigator. There's really no other outside of that. Like I even have Recruiter. Like I have clients that do recruiting and all these different verticals. And I was able to get them transitioned out of the recruiting platform. So they saved money, like significant money every month that way. And they were able to get better results and also get recruits using Sales Navigator. So, I'm biased on that one, but I'll definitely, that's what I would, that's where I would start for sure. And you can do a 30-day trial of it too.
Okay. Good to know. So great. Well, that's all the questions that we've got. Connor, really, really, really appreciate this. This has probably been one of the best interviews that I've done so far, especially in terms of just pure awesome takeaway for the audience. I always like to give this time here at the end. If you can take 5 minutes, pitch whatever you want. And so just go ahead.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity to serve your community. You're a great podcast host. So that brings me to my ask for you guys who are listening. If you're listening to this now, do one thing for me and go subscribe to Jeremy's podcast and leave a review, because that's ultimately going to help him get more reach. It's going to help his rankings in the iTunes platform. And via that means I'm going to be able to get this information in front of more people, which is my passion.
Well, I appreciate that. And then go check out Mile High Mentors is the name of your podcast, right?
Yeah, we're the Mile High Mentors. I do the Mile High Mentors podcast, and we're on all the platforms also. It's a little more geared towards Colorado professionals, but I got listeners from like Australia on there, which I was super fascinated by. Like, what drew you to Mile High Mentors podcast and you're living in Australia?
Right. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's insights to be gained from everywhere.
Right.
And then your company is activeblogs.com, correct?
Yep, Active Blogs.
And if you're a company looking to make very technical, high level, big SA or, SaaS or IT, other IT, because there's a lot of verticals of IT, like you said, if you're looking for the experts when it comes to social selling and B2B marketing, check out activeblogs.com.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
Connor, thank you again for being on the show. And everybody listening, get out there, do better on LinkedIn, leverage B2B content, build your sales program on LinkedIn the right way. Thank you all for listening, and happy marketing, everyone.